Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Protecting Foster Youth from Secondhand Smoke Exposure. My name is Jamie Kelsey. I am a trainer here at Foster Adopt Connect. These materials were put together by Children's Division, and you can access this information on their website. However, we've brought it to you in a one-stop shop format so that all you have to do is sit back and watch. There will be a slideshow presentation and several videos that will take you through. And at the end of this presentation, there will be a short quiz just with a few questions affirming that you watched the slides, you watched the videos, and that will generate your certificate of completion. This training is worth 1 hour of training credit. Throughout the presentation, you will not hear my voice. You will just be seeing the slides and the videos. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or access the content again through the link that we provide you that will take you back to Children's Division website. So without further ado, I will go ahead and begin the presentation.
I had to get away from the smoke real quick because I felt like if I didn't, I would like stop breathing for a minute.
My chest gets tight and I feel like my lungs are squeezing together and I can't really breathe.
It feels like my heart is beating really fast.
No, it feels like you're under the water and you can breathe.
Many of us already know that smoking cigarettes is bad for your health. It causes cancer, heart, and breathing problems. But sometimes we don't think how cigarette and cigar smoke might also be hurting someone else, like your children.
Problems that children can develop if they're exposed to cigarette smoke or secondhand smoke includes problems like respiratory tract infections, including bronchitis and pneumonia. They can also experience ear infections as a result of secondhand smoke, and they can also have more asthma symptoms and more asthma attacks if they're exposed to secondhand smoke.
Secondhand smoke is the smoke that comes from the burning end of a cigarette or cigar. It's also the smoke breathed out by a smoker. When someone breathes in this secondhand smoke, it can be just as harmful as actually smoking.
I've seen children have very severe asthma attacks after having an exposure to secondhand smoke, attacks that were so bad that they required hospitalization in our intensive care unit.
Secondhand smoke can also cause lung cancer and heart attacks in adults who do not smoke. There are more than 4,800 different chemicals and gases in secondhand smoke. 250 of them are toxic and act as poisons in the body. These include arsenic, cyanide, and carbon monoxide in a deadly combination. It is not something that anyone, especially children, should be breathing.
We estimate that 43% of children between the ages of 2 and 11 years are exposed to secondhand smoke. We also know that 40%, that's nearly half, of children who end up in the emergency department because of asthma problems are exposed to secondhand smoke.
Secondhand smoke in the home is especially harmful to children. Those who live in homes where people smoke get sick more often with coughs, breathing problems such as asthma, and ear infections. They're more likely to miss days of school. And children whose parents smoke are twice as likely to become smokers themselves.
They told me that secondhand smoke will trigger his asthma if we smoke around him or anything, but we smoke outside.
Very young children commonly have lots of viral infections, but if those same children, let's say children less than 2 years of age, are living in a home with a smoker, they're also going to be susceptible to having more wheezing, more shortness of breath, more difficulty handling those viral infections. And parents don't realize it, but sometimes when kids have these symptoms separate from a viral infection, these could be the early warning signs of asthma. And if there's a smoker in the home, it's very likely that secondhand smoke is the trigger for their young child's symptoms.
According to the Environmental Protection Agency, an estimated 1 million children with asthma have their condition made worse by breathing secondhand smoke.
We've had a few pretty scary instances where I'm driving to the emergency room and she's turning blue on me just because she can't breathe.
My asthma started acting up, and when we arrived at the emergency room, I couldn't breathe at all.
Estaba yo sola con el niño y pues ya tenía 15 días el niño enfermo, ¿verdad? Como a los 4 años. Estaba ya con... Él se dormía, pero yo tenía que estarlo viendo porque era el momento en que el asma le prendió más fuerte. Decía, papi, ¿qué tienes? Nada, pero él respiraba y las costillas de aquí se le subían y se le bajaban, se le subían y se le bajaban. Y yo lloraba.
We know that secondhand smoke causes premature death both in children and non-smoking adults. It causes heart disease and lung cancer, and children can be born with or can develop asthma, respiratory tract, and ear infections.
People have a lot of misconceptions about secondhand smoke. A lot of people think that it's okay to be exposed to a little bit, but a lot of exposure is bad. That's not really true. Even a small amount of exposure can be harmful. People also think that it's okay to smoke in the home or in the car as long as a window is open, but that's not true either. You're still going to expose that child to some smoke, and the smoke can linger in the home or in the car, even in the fabric and the furniture and the car seats for a long time. People also think it's okay to smoke as long as their child isn't home, or maybe when their child is asleep in bed. But that's also not a good idea because the smoke can linger in the household for a long time.
I have to tell my family and my friends, don't smoke around him because it will trigger his asthma.
When someone smokes inside a home or any enclosed space, everyone inside breathes the secondhand smoke. Babies are especially at risk, and mothers who smoke while pregnant are more likely to have their babies born with breathing problems or worse.
Smoking during pregnancy is a very dangerous thing. Research has shown that mothers who smoke during their pregnancy have babies who are at increased risk to die of sudden infant death syndrome, which is a very severe problem and can occur without warning.
Make your home and your car smoke-free. Be sure wherever you take your child is smoke-free. If you smoke, do it outside the home in an open area, away from children. When out in public, make a point to go only to non-smoking places.
It's not so much about being confident about asking someone to not smoke. You're doing it for the benefit of your child's health. And anything that's going to benefit your child from not being sick or to not trigger them into an attack shouldn't raise any problems within yourself to ask somebody to stop, or within your friends and family, because if they care about you, they'll respect your wishes and your child and not do it around them.
If people are smoking, ask them to please not smoke in your home or car, and teach your children how to avoid secondhand smoke.
My recommendations for parents are to designate their home as being smoke-free, to remove lighters and ashtrays from their home, to put up stickers or reminders that their home is smoke-free, and that they shouldn't smoke in the car either.
If your child has trouble breathing or shortness of breath, talk to a doctor.
Doctors had lectured me and warned me about the effects of secondhand smoke on asthmatics, and for the sake of my daughter, I felt it was beneficial for me to quit smoking, for hers and my benefit.
For more information about secondhand smoke and quitting smoking, talk to your doctor, nurse, or healthcare provider, or call 1-800-QUIT-NOW, or visit these websites. Keeping a smoke-free home can help improve your health, the health of your children, and your community.
I've said, Dad, can you please stop smoking?
If I could do one thing, it was to tell my dad and my brother that don't smoke no more.
I would wish for my mom to stop smoking so her and me can get better.
Secondhand smoke is a major issue across the country today, and it affects many adults and children each year. It is the mixture of two types of smoke: side stream smoke, which is the smoke coming off the lighted end of a cigarette, and mainstream smoke, which is what the smoker exhales. Both of these contain carcinogens, which are harmful to adults, but are especially harmful to children. Dr. Paul Ruff, a pediatrician in Starkville, explains some of the risk involved when children are exposed to secondhand smoke.
These include asthma development, increased incidence of chronic cough, sinusitis, ear infections, pneumonia, bronchitis, loads of respiratory infections are a risk for a small child or an infant exposed to secondhand smoke.
According to the American Cancer Society, there are around 3,400 lung cancer deaths each year as a result of breathing secondhand smoke. It also causes 50,000 to 300,000 lung infections in children younger than 18 months of age. Dr. Robert McMillan of the SSRC explains why secondhand smoke is more harmful to children.
Well, there are several reasons. One is that children are in a developmental stage, so these toxins and carcinogens have more of an impact on their developing bodies. Also, children have a higher metabolism, so they're processing these toxins and carcinogens more rapidly. And then the other is that children don't have a vote. If you're an adolescent or an adult and somebody's smoking around you, you can get up and leave. But if you are a child in a car seat or a child at home, an infant, it's harder to vote with your feet. So children just don't have a voice. So it's their metabolism, their developmental stage, the fact that they don't have a voice, and then again the fact that they are also closer to the upholstery, etc.
Since children are at a higher risk, it is important for pediatricians and physicians to caution parents about smoking around their children.
Occasionally there will be a child that for special reasons, prematurity, asthma, immune deficiency, chronic lung disease, there will be times when, as the advocate for the child, we must counsel specific parents against the increased risk that that child has associated with secondhand smoke exposure.
Although many parents are aware of the potential effects secondhand smoke can have on their children, tobacco addiction can be difficult to overcome.
People do not understand how powerful the nicotine addiction is. Again, I can't give you the citation, but common knowledge has said that addiction to nicotine is 7 times more powerful than addiction to cocaine.
Research has shown that parents who smoke around their children are more likely to attempt to quit if their child's physician advises them to do so.
For adult smokers who have not heard the cessation message from any healthcare provider, about 43% of them will make a quit attempt in any given year. If they've heard it from one provider, about 53% will have made a quit attempt. If they hear it from 2 providers, about 58%, and if they hear it from 3, then 77%.
Even though this research is encouraging, Dr. Collins explains that children whose parents smoke are at a greater risk of becoming smokers themselves.
That's proven event. The best predictor of adult smoking is a parent who smokes. Period.
I think it is fair to say secondhand smoke is killing innocent people. There is no safe level of exposure to secondhand smoke.
Studies have shown that exposure over time leads to a 20 to 30% increased risk of developing lung cancer. Even a little exposure can be really bad for you.
Just like smoking, secondhand smoke can contribute to 11 different types of cancer, as well as increased risk of heart attack and heart disease. 23 states have comprehensive smoking bans in place.
New York, Massachusetts, Arizona all have seen a decrease in heart attacks as well as lung cancer incidents. Unfortunately, St. Louis does not have a comprehensive smoking ban.
The best solution to protect workers, patrons, and anybody who's exposed to secondhand smoke is a strong smoke-free policy. smoke-free policies work. Quitting rates go up, and then we dramatically reduce the risk of lung cancer over time. Kids that don't see people around them smoking are less likely to start smoking.
In addition to advancing the treatment and early detection of lung cancer, researchers at the Siteman Cancer Center at Barnes Jewish Hospital and Washington University School of Medicine have found that nicotine levels are significant when smoking is allowed, even with a ventilation system.
The nicotine measurements that we did in the St. Louis venues proved that nicotine levels in some ventilation systems was even higher compared to those venues that did not have a ventilation system. You would get the secondhand smoke being recycled back into the room again.
One of the important things that the Siteman Cancer Center is doing is not just supporting groundbreaking research, but communicating that so that essentially the science can get into the community.
The costs of implementing smoke-free environments are pretty low, and the benefits are very high.
This is about improving and saving people's lives.
Unfortunately, because of the secondhand smoke in the air, I had an asthma attack within 10 minutes, so I was forced to leave.
The cancer, how I got it, was due to my exposure to secondhand smoke in all those smoky clubs for all those years.
You're asking the employee to choose between their health and making a living. That's just not fair.
Everybody has a dream. They want to be able to support their family. They want to be able to support themselves. They want to be responsible. But the reality is that these kinds of things are going to be in your workplace. How can you when you're exposed this way? I've been a waitress for 40 years to earn a decent living for my daughter and myself. My doctor told me I had a smoker's tumor, and therefore I'm dying. I never smoked a day in my life. I never smoked. The air was blue where I worked, and I'm dying of lung cancer from secondhand smoke. For myself, I feel that I spent 40 years working in the industry, and now I'm coming out to die. And so I want people to know that, to me, that there was too much exposure to the known health hazard in the workplace.
Those kinds of atmospheres, bars, restaurants, casinos, are the last vestiges of smoking. I was a very successful, award-winning stand-up comedian who in August 2001, had surgery for lung cancer that was due to my exposure to secondhand smoke in all those smoky clubs for all those 11 years.
She's decided that, she needs to tell other people what happened to her, and she needs to use her story to motivate people to change.
Yeah, so if you want to catch up with Renee, she's going to be at that meeting tonight. So
yeah, and everybody should come out. Exhibit.
I don't want smokers to smoke. I don't want you to die. But if you choose to do so, I support your personal choice. But please support mine. Don't take me with you. Don't take me with you.
The city of El Paso is about the 21st largest city in the country. We are as far west Texas as you can get, and we border with Juarez, Mexico. Well, in the very beginning, which was in November of 2000, I told a reporter that there was no way that we were ever going to pass such a tough ordinance, a smoking ordinance.
My gut instinct was that it would have negative impacts on businesses and that people had the right to determine their own future. As I started really researching and going out and starting asking questions, my opinion started to gradually shift.
I learned that there's dozens of cancer-causing chemicals in cigarette smoke. I learned that no manufacturer of filtration systems guaranteed the effectiveness of their system. And I kept saying to all the other elected officials, how can you compromise somebody's life, somebody's health, whether they're in a bar, whether they're in a restaurant, whether they're in a VFW hall? And the majority of the city council agreed with me, and we passed that ordinance by a 7-1 vote.
I don't think it's had a negative impact. We still see the people who used to smoke in our restaurants, and the people who didn't smoke seem to come more often than they used to. So we've had really robust sales in the past 5 years.
We have more restaurants than we had before, in spite of El Paso having the toughest smoking ordinance or non-smoking ordinance in the state, and one of the toughest in the whole country still. It's been a tremendously positive experience and impact on the city.
Lexington is a community of 300,000 people nestled in central Kentucky. Lexington has always been an agricultural center. The tobacco background is central to our DNA. Smart business people like Mike Scanlon know that we can be proud of our community's past, but we don't want to live in it. And that's the case with the smoke-free initiative we've had in this town.
And really what I'm trying to do is show everybody what the future looks like.
Mike Scanlon waded in. He said, I'm one of the largest restaurant employers in this community. I'm going to take this community smoke-free, and I'm going to set an example. And it was an example that spoke loudly.
As a businessman, I had been through many communities in Phoenix going smoke-free, and I knew it didn't hurt business. I think part of it gets down to is the decision of how are we going to make our money, and how do we explain to ourselves when we drive home with our profits that we're letting our employees get sick, and that we're looking at the employees and say, well, if you don't want to work here, then don't. We came to the conclusion that it would be advantageous for us to have that competitive advantage where we're smoke-free where other restaurants aren't, knowing that that's really the way it's going.
The biggest single beneficiary from our decision to go smoke-free as a company was our employees. It was our belief that if you value your employees as much as we do, that you have to take care of them.
In the middle of the tobacco belt, we had common sense enough to make smoke-free environments. I know there'll be a lot more healthy, happy families as a result of this. And I think at the end of the day, that's what people sent me to office to do.
Children are most exposed to secondhand smoke in their homes and in their cars. And what we're asking parents to do is to just become aware of the fact that the home is the area where there's the greatest exposure, and it's going to have to be the place where a personal commitment is made.
What impressed me about this young man, because he was in 5th grade at the time, was how knowledgeable he was. That really encouraged me
My parents were taking me bowling. Unfortunately, because of the secondhand smoke in the air, I had an asthma attack within 10 minutes, so I was forced to leave.
We're getting more and more reports that indicate that children are just suffering disproportionately, that asthmatic children are being triggered by people smoking and they're being around smokers.
I was really disappointed by this. You know, I came home and I was like, how am I ever going to have fun if my asthma is going to inhibit me from participating in such activities? So my parents, you know, they suggested, why don't you try and do something about it?
Amit was there because he felt that children and families needed to have places that they could go were smoke-free. We wanted to be able to provide places in the community where families could go and not have to be affected by the harmful effects of secondhand smoke.
I made a presentation representing the children of Lubbock.
We also need laws to make our air safer to breathe.
And we ended up winning 64% of the vote. Finally, we were going to get a smoking ban in Lubbock.
If I can stop others from having to go through and experience what I had to, they may not have the skills to come through it with laughter. So if I can help do that, then yes, this is a happy ending to a sad story.
It takes the business community, it takes the medical community, and it takes the elected official community to say, stand up, that's not fair.
And when you can stand up for the good of society, you can die the next day and feel like you have mattered on this earth.
I can't say that I'll be the one to die, the last one to die, but I'm hoping that at least I'll make a difference.
Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. If you, like I said, take the very short quiz at the end, it will generate a certificate of completion that looks like what you're seeing on your screen now. If you have any problems or any questions, feel free to give us a call here at Foster Adopt Connect, 816-350-0215. Thank you so much.